everyone, and welcome to the new TrackBase version. 5 years ago, TrackBase went live, and today we're going to present you a whole new feature. It's called the TrackBase Developers page. With it, we want to give the developers amongst our users the possibility to gather information from TrackBase. Such data would be, for example, a rankings API, or even more useful, user information. But first things first. So, what do you need to do to become a developer on TrackBase? First of all, I want to tell you that our developers page is built up mostly the same way as the Facebook or the Twitter developers platform. This means that you also need to register as a developer beforehand. Of course, you need an active TrackBase account, which I have right now. So now, how do I register as a developer? Basically, that's pretty simple. You have this menu appear, you click it, and there you can see the sign up link if you haven't registered as a developer yet. So let's click that. Now, as a developer, you have to supply your first and last name, so the users who will connect to your application will see who they are connecting with. So let me type in my first name and last name. Now when that's done, click sign up. We get a success message. Success, you've submitted your registration. Please check your email account and activate your developer account now. So let's do that. So let's go over to my inbox. I've got a new email from developers from TrackBase, and it says activating your developer registration on TrackBase. So let's open that. So, hello Thomas, you have submitted registration on developers.trackbase.net. In order to activate this registration, please hit the following link. Thanks for registering. I want to give you a quick note. If someone else tried to register as a developer with your account, you can get rid of this registration by just waiting 24 hours and we will automatically kill your registration. So now let's click that link, open it in a new tab. And here we go. Success, you are now a developer. Please check out an incoming email blast. So, let's do that. I have a new email incoming, developers TrackBase. You are now a developer on TrackBase. So that's the confirmation email. This email gives you a new hash. It is really important to keep this email secure. So, as it states in this email, please keep a copy of this email, or just copy this few characters on a sheet of paper. So now we are a developer on TrackBase. Let's refresh that page. As we are a developer now, I can click my name here, and as you can see, I have a new option called apps. So let's click that. I can now create apps as I'm a developer. Currently I do not have any applications, so it asks me if I want to create a new one. Let's do that. Please read that, it's important. I want to give a name. For now, I'm gonna call this YouTube test application. Also, this requires a description. Make this description helpful because it will be shown to the user when he wants to connect to your application. For now, I'm just gonna call it YouTube test application description. I will know what that means. And now that's quite important, the server URL. This one, you need to set a valid URL to your server and to your file, where you will process all incoming requests from us. First of all, you have to set a server name. So for example, in this case, I'm going to use filebase.trackbase.net because I don't have a domain. So I'm going to use TrackBase once. Now, next is we need a file. Mine is located in the folder YT, and then I will call it request.php. You can call it anything you want, but that file definitely has to exist because we're going to send information to that file. Then you have to supply a requireable data. You can select multiple items. Please note that the more items you will select, the less likelier it is that the user will connect to your application, because he doesn't know what you're doing with that data. So for now, I'm going to select 2 items. I'm going to select my email address, and I'm going to select my username. You can select multiple items holding the control key on Windows. So let's create that API. We have a new message incoming saying, "Success, you have created a new application." That's great. Now, as you can see, I've also got a new email. Let's check that one out. Your new app on TrackBase Developers, YouTube test application. Here we go. This email is very important as well. It holds the application authentication key and the private key. Please keep that email secure or copy those keys on a sheet of paper. By default, you will have all APIs available. As you can see, you have requires data set to email address and username. You can change your app name, your app description, and your server URL. Also, you can regenerate your authentication key and your private key, but note, only once a day. You also have a relation token, we'll come to that later, a relations count, and a return token. We'll come to that later as well. You have the possibility to remove this application. Let's click that for now. This text basically says you will need the private key. So that's what the private key is for. If you want to remove an application, you need the private key. So what next? Well, we have got an application now, but we haven't really connected to an API yet. First of all, I want to give you a quick look over our APIs. Currently we only have 2 APIs, but we're going to add a few more in the future. Also, make sure to suggest new ones so we can add them by your choice. We have 2 types of APIs. User non-related information APIs and user-related information APIs. User-related information APIs will require a user to connect to your account or to your application. However, you can access APIs without a user being connected to your application with non-user related information APIs. For example, the ET Rankings API. Let me click that. You can go to the docs. So let's do that. You have a good looking docs over here, and you can get all the information you will need in just a few minutes. So how do I connect specifically now to an API? Well, first of all, you need a server where you can connect to that API. Or if you want to connect from your personal PC, make sure to set your server URL to your IP address. Though, then we cannot send you information, so user-related information API apps will not work. So now we need an FTP client. Mine happens to be FileZilla. Once connected and in your directory, we need to create a new file. Obviously that file needs to be named the same as your server URL from the application. Remember, server URL. So mine was request.php. Let's create that. Create new file, request.php. Once open that file, as we are programming in PHP in this case, we need to open the PHP tags. So what we need is curl. Curl is an extension for PHP which allows me, the developer, to access different servers and their web pages and get the source code from them. So we're going to start from scratch. Note that we always going to return our APIs in JSON format. So I'm going to set the header here. Header, content type, application, JSON, char set. Please also set that to UTF-8. Now we are using curl. I'm going to create a new function for that to call our API. I'm going to call that function curl request, and it requires parameters, the method, the URL, and the data. Currently we only require the get method, so I'm only going to check for the if method get. If that's the case, we're going to check if data is set. By default, we will set data to false. So if data is set, we will run this code. URL equals printf %s question mark %s, then our URL, and last but not least the HTTP build query function from PHP with the data, so it only appends the data as a string to the URL. Now the next part is we need to set options. That's going to be done with the curl_setup functionality. As you can see, we need the curl instance, then the option, and then the value. So my curl instance currently is curl, but what is curl? Of course, we forgot something, and that's the initialization. Oops. We need to init the curl function. So curl equals curl_init brackets semicolon. Then we're going to use the curl opt URL option, curl opt URL, oops, and the value is going to be the URL. Also, we will use the return transfer option. Therefore, curl setup, curl opt, and not URL, but return transfer. The value will be 1. And then we want to execute, so basically request or start the request to the server. So we're going to store the inner variable. Let's call it result. Result equals curl exec curl. That's going to return the source code, or basically what's being returned from the web page. Then we can, or should rather, close the curl command. So here we go. And then, as that's a function, we need to return something, and we want to return the result. So you might want to implement this function over and over again. This happens to be faster for now and a lot more clean for me. So now we want to call our API now. First of all, we need to think of which API we want to call. Yeah, so for now I'm gonna go with the EG Rankings API. And as you can see on the docs, we've got this URL, and we're gonna copy that. We require this URL. So remember, this is the URL. First of all, let's initialize the command. So command equals curl request method get, then the URL, let's put that in the new variable, URL, and then we need the data. So that's going to be an array. And this page shows us what we need to supply. We need the type, which has to be a string. We need order, which has to be a string, a limit, which has to be an integer, list, string, and start integer. Please read that. It's important and you will require it eventually. Now let's basically apply that. So we need a type of string, which can be normal or TSP. Well, for now let's use normal, right? Let's say we want to fetch the normal rank list. So all I gotta do is go in here, type in type, and set this to normal. Oops, sorry. Normal. Now we need more than just this parameter. We also need order, which needs to be a string. It needs to be either ASC or DESC. Ascending will give you an ascending order, means it will start with the first string. So let's do that. So order ASC. Then the limit, possible are integers in range of 1 to 50. So basically we will get the top 10 if we supply 10. Let's do that. So limit 10. Next, list. List can be players or clans. So in my case, I want to get the players rank list. So I'm going to supply list players. Next, we need the start, and that needs to be an integer. Possible are all numbers greater than 0. So I want to start with the first string. Oops, sorry. This needs to be start. Start, we want to do 1. So then eventually what we want to do in here now is say echo command. Of course you can do something else. You can store information, you can validate information first of all, but for this tutorial I want to first of all just output information, right? So let me go to that URL. So now we get out this. Code is 200, so the request was made successfully, but we have error code 1. Please supply more information. Well, actually we did supply the exact amount of information and exactly the required information, but with an API request you need to supply more background information. That's tokens. We need application tokens. So let's go over to the application we have, and for a valid application programming interface request you will need first of all the relation token and your authentication key and your application ID. So application ID is 15. So over here let's put in the app ID, and that's 15. Also we need the token, which is the relation token. Let's go over here with the relation token. Let's just copy it out and paste it in here. Paste. As this is a string, we need to do that. Okay, and last but not least we need the application authentication key. This needs to be sold as underscore AAK. Let's do that. As you can see, the AAK is not publicly visible, but only in your email, so another reason why you should keep that secure. Let's copy that out and paste it in here in a string again, and that's it. Now let's save it, upload it to FileZilla, to our FTP server, and then eventually let's try it out again. Wait, here we go, and here we go. We have got results. Request was made, some results were collected. Results consists out of 1 element, 2 elements, and so on, and as you can see in the count, it exists out of 10 elements. As you can see, it's filled with a lot of information. You can handle a lot with it. You can link to the TrackBase page again. You can show information from TrackBase now on your own homepage and all that stuff. Make sure to play around with it and read through the API description, and yeah, hopefully you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So that's the rankings API. Now what if I wanted to connect a user to my application and get user information from that person? Well, therefore we need the relation token, we need a return token, and we need to request data. So let's do it. Let's continue working on something. Well, we remember hopefully that there were two types of APIs. One was the non-user related information API, and this one is a user related information API. So let's click that and see the docs. And as you can see, we need a UID and a request, and that's the URL. So let's copy that. New URL, and get is still the same, but now we don't need these kind of things anymore. Let's get rid of them. But instead we will need a UID. And I will now try to get information from 2290, that's user Johnny, and I will need a request, or basically a request in teacher, and please read through that. It's a bitwise number, so username 1 and email 2, and if you would want both, then you would have to supply 3, so please read through that, kind of important. And for now we're going to say request 1 only. So that's it. We have an app that's set to 15, token is still the same, AAK is still the same. Right, so let's try to do that, and as you can see, we have an error code for user is not connected to your app. So that's pretty good, because we don't just want to give user information out of any user. So what the developer now has to do is he has to get users to connect to their application. Back at your application page, when you want to have user information from a user, you will need two things, and that's this relation token and a URL. And that URL is basically http://developers.trackbase.net/relations/connect ? Your app ID, which is in my case 15, and then $token equals, now paste that in, and that's your token. So that's basically the page or the URL you will need to redirect the users to, so they can connect with your application. So the user can then see some information, for example your app name, your app description, your developer name, and so on, and he can see what you want from him, so which data you will get. So that's 1, email address, and 2, username. The user can then say allow access or cancel. So let's allow access, but I'm not going to do that now, because in fact we need to do one more thing in the backend in our code, and that's basically to listen on new things, to listen on requests from TrackBase, because when a user connected to your application, you will get a request from TrackBase, and you will have to proceed that. So it will be a post request, by the way, so we're going to check for a post request, and if there's no post request, we're going to echo the command out. However, if there's a post request, so if $server request method triple equals post, and now I can only advise you to do another check, so no one can annotate these requests, that you will check with the server remote address, so to see where the request comes from, and that should usually be 91.220.53.120, or $server remote address triple equals 91.220.53.121. These two IP addresses, 91.220.53.120 and 9.122.0.53121 are basically the TrackBase IP addresses. So the request will either come from this IP or from that. Please check that so no one can imitate these requests. Now, the next thing is another check, because you should always check if the request is full of data and it matches your imagination of what you will get. And it's basically some information. First of all, the new relation token. So we're checking here if not empty, because we only want to proceed if that request holds that post field. So we're gonna do $_post and then new relation token, and new relation token triple equals. And now that's important, because that relation token is, where are we? Here we go. That relation token is the return token. So again, we want to make everything as secure as possible, and that contains a return token. So only listen to that return token. If that matches, then you know that the request is coming from TrackBase and the token is correct. So let's do that in here. But now we also need an app ID, because we want to make sure the request was made to our app. You might have supplied the same URL to for different apps. So you also want to check if not empty of $post new relation app ID and is numeric, because it should be a number, $post of new relation app ID. And what I usually do is to check again if it's greater than 0, is to cast this to an integer. So $post new relation app ID, and check if that is greater than 0. But as I said, we want to check if it's our app, so we have to supply triple equals 15, because now we can use triple equals because we casted it to an integer. So that's fine. And yeah, the next part is to handle the information we get from TrackBase, and that's basically the user ID. So you might also want to check if is set or not empty, and all that kind of integer validation thing we just did. I'm just going to do an is set for now, and you want to see if is set of $post of new relation user ID. That's important. That should always be part of the request. So now you might do something like store this into your database and stuff like that. But in this case, I just want to save it to a file. So I'm going to say file equals file.txt. Then file equals fopen of file and write permission. Then we want to say text equals $post the new relation user ID we just received, and let's add a line break. And then eventually want to write that to the file, basically. So handle is the file and the string is the text. Don't forget the semicolon. And yeah, that's it. Now we can close that file, and that's done. Now the most important part here in this request block is to either do nothing or echo it something different. But if everything worked, you have to supply or basically output something, and that's capital O, capital K, exclamation mark. We are listening, so TrackBase is listening on the return of that, and if it's OK exclamation mark, then it will give out a success message to the user. Otherwise, it will give out a success message with a warning. So please always return OK, exclamation mark, or better, echo it out, and only, of course, if it worked. So that's it. And basically what we need to do now is to connect to our application. So back to that page, let's refresh. So eventually we want to connect to our application now. Of course you can cancel that, but in this case we might want to allow access, and let's do that. So the relevant relation has been created. However, I see an error here. Let's check out the code first. And yeah, indeed, sorry. I did that as a variable, but of course this needs to be a post variable. Just checked out the other variables as well. So this basically needs to be post new relation token. Sorry. So now that should be working. Let's quickly deny access to our relation again. So that's it. By the way, I forgot to upload it. So here we go. And now let's connect again. So connect, question mark app is 15, and our token, that's that part. And now let's allow access again. And here we go. No error anymore, or no warning at least. And it says you have successfully connected to a new application. We have redirected you to the relevant relation. And you can see all information here. So now let's try to get the user information. Let's refresh. And we can see user is not connected to your app because, well, what did we do? We said 2290, but we just connected a different user. If we just check it out, my user ID is 12323. So that has to be 12323. Now let's upload it in FileZilla, and by the way, we can see that a new file has been created. Let's view it. And here you go, 12323. You might again want to store it in a database, but we see that it worked, that the user ID has been transferred. So now, as that should be working, we're going to refresh again, and here we go. Request was made, some results were collected, and as we said in our code that we want to request 1, that's the username, we basically got that out. So TB testing. Cool. So that's the user API. Again, you can request more than one field and simply summarize them, and it will then return not just the username but maybe the email address as well. And yeah, that's the user API. I hope you like it. One more thing to do is to see and to show you yeah, how to basically delete a relation, and to show you that the app doesn't have access to it anymore. So first of all, we can see on the application page that one relation has been established now, and yeah, now I could do this request over and over again. But if I, as the user, wanted to, let's say, get rid of it and want to, yeah, deny access to my information, I can simply remove this relation. Although please note that you know, removing a relation does not mean that the server we have sent the information to does always also delete the information. So your data are gone, but the app doesn't have access to them in the future anymore. So let's remove this relation. Success. And now if we do this request again, we have again the user is not connected to your app error. So that's it. I hope you like it. Please give us feedback and show us some love, and also hit the thumbs up button here on this video and suggest new new APIs. Sorry, and yeah, have fun with the new TrackBase version. Hope to see you soon.